Yeah, that way we could get finished a little earlier. First of all, I would like to welcome Mary Royko.
Say hi, Dad.
Hi.
Yep,
Thank you.
glad to
Say
have you aboard,
hi.
Mary.
Thank you, John.
Okay, very good. Um, I think I ought to set a few ground rules before we start, just to make things go a little smoother and make it the meeting a little bit more orderly. First of all, if you want to talk, just raise your hand so I can see it and then call on you, okay? And if you have a comment, a suggestion, or want to ask a question, just put your hand up. That way we won't be all talking at once. The second thing is speak slowly and clearly because Flo wants to take notes, and it'll be a lot easier for her to do it if we give her a chance to speak clearly. And the third thing is if we talk about any of the items on the agenda tonight, either Flo or John will give you the page number we're on, okay? I've got everything on my tablet here, so all I have to do is flip, and I can flip to everything that she sent us. So I think that would be good to have, especially during the regulations that we're going to be talking about.
Excuse me,
So-
John, excuse me, John.
Yeah.
Alan, I'll be able to share everything that I sent with you on the screen if you'd like as well.
Oh, okay, that's good.
Yep.
All right, that'll make it easy for us then.
Sure.
Okay. Let me get the agenda. Okay. So we will start the meeting. I'll call the meeting to order right now. And we'll have the roll call. And Mary, you can be on one of our alternates today and be a member. And I would like to know if anybody has any additions or changes to the agenda before we start. John, you're on. Hey.
We have one change. We'd like to put the new business before old business, and that would be Kevin.
Oh, okay.
64 Laurel Lane.
Yep. Okay, very good. Okay, so the first thing on the agenda I see is an audience of citizens, and I don't think we have anybody here, do we? Nope, nope, no audience of citizens. Okay. And the second thing we will discuss, like John suggested, we'll get into new business. And first item I see is item 3.3 IWC 2021-01, the application for Kevin Shortoff for the activity at 64 Laurel Lane to reconstruct the driveway into a semicircle. Assessor's map 012B, lot 13 in the LAR zone. John, do you want to give us a background on that for it?
Yeah, just a brief point of order. You did recognize Mary as a I don't know if you said she's a seated member, but she would
Yes.
be seated this evening for either for Bill or Carol. So if you want to designate who she's seated for, fine. If not, then we
Either one, we'll let
accept
Flo
that Mary
make
is
it.
seated as a member
Yeah.
to act on the application this evening. Yes, just briefly, I've been working with Kevin, Mr. Shortoff, now for over a month, and I've been to the site three times, recently last Thursday, and pretty much we have a good feel for the way the project should go forward. What I can say about the site is there is a little bit of a quandary on whether or not there's a wetlands there today. There was a wetlands there back in '87 when the plan was developed for the property, for the house that went in. And that wetlands was shown at the road, and pretty much it's in place of where that deep detention basin is. And that for those of you that did not do the site walk, the detention basin is probably 10 to 12 foot in diameter at the top, 4 to 5 foot deep, and right in the area where the plan shows wetlands. So I think over the course of the last 33 years, the wetlands have been disturbed in that they created a detention area there for storm drainage from the road, which then goes into a culvert across Laurel Lane and then down Laurel Lane to Route 87, and then across and then heads south up 87. It doesn't go into the lake. So Mr. Shortoff is not on the Andover, the Columbia Lake watershed. And in addition to the structure that is the detention basin taking the place of the wetlands, it looks like there may have been some associated filling when the town excavated that basin and then took the material and placed it in what was the rest of the wetlands immediate to the driveway. So I did not put this all together until recently, but given that we had a plan, it identified a wetlands, the driveway was going to be going in or adjacent to it, we had Mr. Shortoff come to this commission for a permit. So I think you get the idea is that we may no longer have a wetland soil there because of the disturbance back 33, 34 years ago. So that's what that's at. And then Mr. Shortoff is practiced now, and he does have a plan, and he does have a sequence that he would like to go through, and then we can comment after he presents his application.
Okay, is he going to be presenting that at the next meeting?
This is the
Or this
application was received at the meeting that we didn't have
Okay,
back in July.
Yep.
Instead of having the meeting and meeting Mr. Shortoff, what we did is we met in the field at Mr.
Yes.
Shortoff's house, and a number of us were able to look at the site.
okay.
Do we have any members present? Ron, you were there? No?
Yes, yes.
And anybody else? Was
I
anybody?
was there as well. This is the
Tom?
Ian was there.
Ian, oh, Ian, that's right. I'm looking at your name. Yeah, right. So we had three members that were there that are present this evening. So
Okay, good.
we can act on the application tonight. Let me just ask one question, Mr. Shortoff. When do you plan on Mr. Shortoff was in the middle of constructing the driveway when I asked him to stop and get a permit. When do you plan on completing the driveway, Mr. Shortoff?
Excuse me. I was hoping to get it done by, the middle of October.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you. So
Very good.
you could present your plan and your application, and if you need some help putting this up on the screen, then you can ask for that. And Flo, you could show the plan as he requests.
So does everybody have the plan that I outlined?
Everyone's nodding, Kevin.
Okay. So, the basic, so number one, the explanation is that we don't like backing out into the road. We would just want to make our driveway a semicircle, and it is going to incur into a small section of wetlands that we're going to run a solid 6-inch pipe for drainage for the, so let me just digress here. So I consider like the middle of our property as the Continental Divide. In front of it, all the water goes towards the street. In the back of the middle, in the back of the property, everything goes towards just towards the area that everybody, all of our neighbors dump the water into.
Yeah.
So our plan was, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Somebody had a question? No?
Yeah, anybody have no, I don't
No
have one.
question.
Oh, sorry. So the plan was to, like there's about a, maybe a 20-yard by 50-yard section in the front of our house that drains underneath the driveway and enters the supposed wetlands. So our plan was to do a 6-inch pipe underneath that, we would, at that time, we would, replace all the soil with everything that was already there. And, just try to reestablish what's there.
Hey, Kevin, could we reference the plan, if you don't mind? So.
Oh, sure.
About a 20 by 50 yard area, if you were to go to figure 1 of your application, you could see that area that he's referencing if you're looking over the driveway towards the house, correct?
Thank you, John. Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. Who has control of that, Kevin or Flo? Figure 1. There you go. Nope. Yep. Nope. Not yet. Not yet. I think that's it. Or, nope. Go
Up one more page. Yep.
There you go.
Right there.
Yes, so that shows the pipe that goes underneath the driveway. It's a 6-inch pipe. So on the output of that, we were planning on, making just a rock bed, kind of a holding / settling pond, 3 feet by 2 feet. And then on the output of that settling pond, we're going to have that's where the 6-inch pipe would start.
Should we go to the next page? Would that show where that is going to be? No?
Yes, I think that'd be a
Good
good
question.
idea.
It says it's going through a wetlands area here on the sketch.
That was his interpretation of what it is, and I think I provided a little bit of history on what is and what isn't. You see this yellow line? That's the area that Kevin thought was a wetland area.
Okay.
It's muddy. It's muddy in the springtime, and basically what it is, it's a swale that handles some of the drainage from the property, and the water doesn't settle, and it is a little muddy, but I don't see any indications either in that photo or in the field or any vegetation that would lead me to believe it was a wetlands. It's wet, but I don't believe it's a wetlands as defined by the general statutes.
It's currently bone dry.
And it's,
Okay.
typically you'd be looking at a real rich black organic material on the sides of that swale if it were a wetland soil. And you'd be looking, well, anyway, much of it's been denuded, so you don't see any vegetation, but there were no indicators of a wetlands there. But Kevin did identify it as a wetlands, but I think we clarified that now.
Yep. Okay.
So yeah, so this page shows what is proposed. So starting from the road, coming back, that's going to be the new driveway threshold, and we're going to have a 10-inch diameter pipe buried about 12 inches below the driveway. It's going to be surrounded by stone, crushed stone, and but leading into that, the buried runoff pipe that is shown there, there'll be a settling pond. It'll mimic the one that is upstream of this, so it'll be about 3 feet by 2 feet, lined with sediment fabric, and then local stone that we have on property.
Can I provide an explanation for clarification purposes, since some of you weren't at the site, and regardless, that paved area in front of you that's Laurel Lane, correct, Kevin?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and so that red arrow is a continuation of the yellow arrow that you saw earlier, which was the swale that we was talking about that looked like it was wetlands. And then now the point of the arrow is in the basin, the existing stormwater basin that was identified as wetlands on Mr. Shortoff's original site plan for the development of the house. And the purpose of these little settling ponds, in place of having a catch basin where 2 pipes go into, was preferable gave the option to Mr. Shodov, it was preferable to have an open excavation with the pipes exposed in case there was any need to do any cleaning out of any sediment, and or if you had to get in there and snake out the pipe because of any sediment that may have gotten into the pipe. So you have a number of opportunities. You could snake it out on the other side of the driveway. You could snake it out in that 3x2 settling pond. You could snake it out on the little small pond adjacent his driveway, which was that at the beginning of that figure 1 that we looked at earlier. So, and then standard protocol is filter fabric and stone in these things, so we don't end up moving any sediment when the water comes out of one pipe and then goes into the other. Thank you.
That is correct. I agree with everything you said. So this is a
John?
picture.
Yep.
That has a very small watershed, right?
The watershed begins at the back of Mr.
Yeah,
Soloff's
okay,
house.
okay. I'm with you.
And then there's no surface flow. The driveway sort of interrupts surface flow into that area. You have underground flow, meaning the drainage area or the watershed per se extends further than the driveway, but the surface flow is limited to what is only on one side of the driveway. So we're not looking at a lot of surface water
Right,
in any storm event.
okay.
Okay. There's a good picture of that basin that we were talking about. That's the wetlands as defined. And as you could see with those large rocks there, that when the town dug that out, they just deposited that material adjacent to the pit and thereby filling in the wetlands that was there earlier, the historic wetland area. I'm done.
So our plan for this area is to, clean out the organic debris. Actually, that 18-inch drainage pipe going to the street is kind of clogged. So John from the town said once they do the clean out of all the culverts, that they would spend some extra time cleaning out that pipe.
Good.
So my plan was to, reorganize those rocks in a nice fashion, create a little swale to collect any kind of debris that were to come through there, and then allow it to go into that pipe.
Another explanation is that there is no, Mr. Shodov is not draining surface water, he's draining subsurface water. So we don't anticipate any sediment really moving with this drainage. It's all subsurface drainage.
So figure 5 shows the cut for the new, I know it's not quite 3D, but that shows where we're gonna have the new driveway threshold. I don't recall the dimensions offhand, but it's gonna be to code. And I believe the driveway is gonna be 12 feet wide all the way down. And I think the surface cut was 15 feet or something like that.
23 feet.
So
the width of the apron will be approximately 23 feet from edge to edge, and then it narrows down quickly. And
so the point of this picture was that everything's going to be built to code, and it's going to be professionally installed.
What's the surface of the driveway going to be?
So we're going to allow for settling. So for the first couple, so we're going to build it up in several different lifts. The first lift is going to be like 3/4 minus, or not 3/4, 3.5 minus stone, and then we're going to gradually build it up to just to crushed or processed gravel. And then over the top of that, we're going to put stone dust on there. And that'll be for the first, 12 to 18 months, just to allow for settling. And then eventually we will be, paving the whole driveway.
So you're paving right over the stone dust.
I'm going to leave that to the experts. I don't, I'm an electrical engineer. I don't know what the exact process is, but I am going to leave that to the experts to tell me what the process needs to be.
Your construction measures would accept a future paved surface. So you're going about it the right way.
Thank you. So this is showing, so figure 7 shows the skirt drain that I installed around the uphill side of the house. So if you're not familiar, I'm sure nobody's familiar with the area, but if you go to the right of our present yard, it's about a mile of gentle grade uphill slope. So all the water from that flows down the hill. There was in my opinion, a poor attempt to have a skirt drain that went around the house. I dug it all up this spring, and I installed 88 tons of stone around the house. And you can see it follows the path of the 4 drains that I have outlined. And so that stone is lined with filter fabric below, above, and there is a 4-inch diameter pipe that has one of those socks on it that filters out the filters out the sediment as well. So in addition to that, there's 4 surface drains that will divert all the water around the house. I've worked on pitching the yard to make sure everything will flow into this, because like if you see where that brown area is, historically I've had, that was a pond. So I've done everything I can do to mitigate that. I've also, so one of the other plans is that we're going to install a gutter on the front, and I'm sorry, it's not in this picture, but we're going to install a gutter on the front of the house, and all of the gutters are now currently tied into this drainage system, which drains into the back, the quote unquote pond that we're creating.
You said in your application that the 88 tons was approximately 4 triaxles.
It was exactly 4 triaxle.
Yeah,
I spent my whole stimulus check on that thing.
Yeah, those are 15 to 18 yard trucks, correct?
I don't know. They
Okay.
do it by tons.
Yeah.
But it was 22 tons per triaxle.
Well, I did a little estimating of the yardage based on the tonnage and the number of triaxles, and I'll bring that up later.
It was a lot of stone.
Yeah. One of the issues that Mr. Shorthoff or the Shorthoffs are dealing with is that they're on the lower side of Laurel Lane. Lane. There's still a couple more houses below him before you get to the properties that front on 87. Everybody, because I've been around for the development of at least 3 or 4 of those lots going up Laurel Lane. Everybody took their water in the back and created a swale or a leak off and connected it to the next guy and the next guy. And unfortunately, in Mr. Shortoff's case, it was closer to the house than they are on the properties further up the drainage area. So up above, the water was further away from the area that people were enjoying. But in the case of Mr. Shortoff, he had to then pick all this water up and then distribute it further away from his house. Not part of our application, but understanding what he's dealing with.
And from what I've heard, you know, I'm in regular contact with all my neighbors. Like they have sump pumps running 24/7.
Oh, gee.
Yeah, it's a wet area, and it's a large drainage area, and there's a lot of ledge, which contributes to a high water table, and the reason that their pumps are running all year.
So everybody going down the hill and above up the hill from this property, they drain into each other's back land and down to Route 87. Is that acceptable to the town?
Yeah.
Or how does that get justified, I guess, is the question.
I don't know, Tip. I really don't. You know.
But everybody over the years has kind of accepted it.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
You know, you just drain to the next lowest spot. That happens to be the neighbor in most cases, or it happens to be the town road. And if it's a recent subdivision, then you incorporate some standard state-of-the-art designs to handle the stormwater. If it's not, then you just drain onto the property below you.
And from what I've been, you know, I'm in constant contact with all my neighbors. This is just kind of the standard thing. Like people below us have other retention ponds, and you know, this is just everybody accepts it as this is, you know, we got water to deal with, and everybody just kind of manages it on their own.
Okay.
So this figure 8 shows the current area of the water retention pond. The red arrow is pointing to the outflow of our, our new French drain system and what the gutters from the house tie into. The pond's approximately 4 feet deep, and it's, as you can see, it's bone dry now. In the spring or the end of winter and spring, it was definitely full. But it just seems to be like it's a seasonal thing. And we plan on having a surface level outflow that will tie into what the neighbors are currently dumping their water into, the area between Laurel Lane and the next street over. We also plan on so we're going to make a step around the pond, and we're going to install nutrient absorbing plants around there to mitigate any kind of nutrient pollution that we could be adding. So if we go to Number 5 here, construction methods. For the driveway, we're going to do 6 inches of compactable fill, then 4 inches of 3-inch minus fill, and then we're going to top that with gravel, processed gravel, and stone mix or stone dust. That'll be for, approximately the next 18 months till we allow everything to settle, because we do have a high water table. Everything does seem to settle around here. And 5E, we need to bring our current driveway threshold or up to current spec. So we're going to have, when the professionals are installing the new curb cut, we'll have them widen it up. So this is just a kind of a sketch up. It might be kind of hard to see because it's using a 30-year-old depiction of what our property is going to be, but this is basically what we're dealing with. If you see the green arrow is the new driveway that we're proposing. The purple arrow is the pipe that we will be installing through the current quote-unquote wetlands. And the yellow arrows show the new drainage effort that we made around the back side of the house. Are there any questions about that?
Yep. Any questions at all? Okay.
No, I have a question for Tip. Hey, Tip, were you on the Wetlands Commission in '85? Did you start in '85?
I believe, well, I've been on it since its inception,
Yes.
so I guess I was.
Okay, so historically, ever since they started the Wetland Commission back in '85, if they had a development plan like this plan here, they would have required or asked for the applicant to have a soil scientist look at the site. And so that's why I believe that there are no wetlands other than that little pond or the little plunge pool at the road. And was Tony DeJean and Norm Schussler part of the commission when you started?
Yes, they were, and you're quite right. Soil scientists were pretty much involved in every application back in those days.
So I'm pretty confident that what I described earlier is fairly accurate. That's all. Just once again for the record. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? If not, maybe we could have a summary ruling.
Yeah, I have something. I sent the draft out
Okay.
to everybody just so you had an opportunity to look at it and not hear it for the first time. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to send it to Kevin, but I will read this and I will jump a little bit. But basically, I could read it if you don't mind.
Yes, please do, John.
No? Okay, very good. The applicant is Kevin Shortoff at 54 Laurel Lane, 64, correct, Kevin?
Correct.
64 Laurel Lane. And the application was received on July 6th, and a fee of $285 was paid for the proposed activity to construct a driveway with culvert adjacent to a wetlands and install erosion control measures in an historic wetland area, now modified to act as a stormwater plunge pool at the Laurel Lane. So the regulated activity is the installation of the driveway adjacent to the plunge pool, and then the installation of erosion control measures in that plunge pool. It's a filling. The Inland Wetlands and Watercourse Commission agent is to be notified 48 hours in advance. This permit, any other permits that may be required, the applicant may have to return to the Wetlands Commission if it affects this approval. It's the owner's engineer is to provide certification to this agency that the work was done in compliance, or the agent may determine that this work can be done by the homeowner. I don't see that we need an engineer to certify the proper installation of the driveway. The duration of the permit is for 2 years. The applicant has stated that he wanted to do the work this year. There's no reason to give him a permit for 5 years. The town is to inspect and improve the silt fence, hay bales prior to the movement of any earth material. So prior to the start of work, besides meeting the contractor and the homeowner again, the installation of the soil erosion control measures must be in place. And the hay bales are to be placed at the invert of the town culvert, which goes underneath Laurel Lane. Silt fence is to be installed at the end of each workday, perpendicular to the underdrain at the end of the installation of the underdrain. So each day that the work is completed, if it takes a few days, silt fence is to be placed. Hay bales or silt fence shall be installed perpendicular to the drain at 3 points between the existing driveway and the intersection of the new driveway at Laurel Lane. So there's approximately 150 feet, so there should be some silt fence or hay bales every 50 feet. The open disturbed soil will be immediately stabilized with hay and seeded upon finished grading. Silt fence and hay bales to remain in place until the site has been fully vegetated. All activities for the prevention of soil erosion control, such as silt fence, et cetera, consistent with terms and conditions of this permit to control stormwater, shall be kept in order and in place. The property owner is Kevin Shortoff and Mrs. Shortoff, I don't know her first name. They're assigned the responsibility of implementing this erosion and sediment control plan. This responsibility includes the installation and maintenance of control measures, informing all parties engaged on the construction site of the requirements and the objectives of the plan, notifying the Inland Wetlands Commission office of any transfer of this responsibility, and conveying a copy of the erosion and sediment control plan if the title of the land is transferred. The IWWC acknowledges that the owner has offset, that has mitigated the disturbance to the wetlands by providing adequate erosion control measures, infiltrating and treating surface water and roof water to the rear of the home in the detention basin, and reducing the nutrient loading by way of this storm treatment system to the rear of the house, and the installation of 60 cubic yards of stone to infiltrate surface water. These measures I approximated that these measures exceed a 10% reduction of the nutrient loading, which would have been required if this were in the lake zone. The description of the construction sequence for the work has been provided by the applicant. The work is to start about October 2020. Work is to take approximately, how many days, Kevin, do you estimate? Got a nice smile anyway.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
You
now we
too?
can. Okay,
Yeah,
No, I'm paying the guy by the hour, so I'm hoping at 1 to 2 days.
okay, 3 days, unfortunately.
All right, 3 days.
Okay. And that's the underlying line. Okay, that is the summary ruling, and we need a second or a modification.
right. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Tom seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I guess that's unanimous. Anybody opposed? Okay, the
Great.
summary ruling is accepted.
Thank you.
Okay, this will be in the mail, Kevin, and we'll catch up with you in the next month or so.
That's awesome. I appreciate your guys' time.
Good
Enjoy.
luck.
Good luck.
No problem, yeah.
Thank you. Hopefully I don't need any luck, but thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, have a good one.
You as well.
All right. Let's continue then. I guess the next item would be to go back to the uh, old business, right? Which is the proposed regulation changes, the state deep revisions to the Columbia IWWC regulations. Section 19 fee structures, among other sections that John will discuss here.
Okay, how much time do you want to give me? And I
Well, let's
will,
see,
will
about
sort of,
15 minutes, is that
okay,
too
I'll,
much?
I'll take all of 20 minutes.
20, okay.
Okay, so we all, by way of familiarizing the commission with the changes to the state statutes, we've had this discussion, part and parcel of this discussion over the years. When I would make you aware of a change to the regulations, which we did not adopt officially. When we go to change a regulation, and it costs us anywhere from $700 to $900. So I think when occasionally we would just put it off and put it off. Well, now it's time that we collect these small changes. None of them have any serious consequence to our everyday running our business here, but nonetheless, we want to adopt them into our regulations. So I will make this brief, and I will tell you where the sections are in the regulations, where they are in the regulations. You have a copy of the regulations that have been changed to accept these new, to insert these new regulations from the state. What the state DEEP does is that we have a model regulations. Around 90% of the towns in Connecticut accepted the model regulations. So that means the format is standard. It doesn't mean that every regulation is identical. Some towns have different regulations. They add this or delete that, but the format is the same. And so when the state changes a regulation, they tell you where it gets inserted in your model regulation. So we don't have to struggle with it. They create the language. They take the statute. They use the statutory language. Then they use some language that makes it comfortable for people to read, rather than just using the legal ease that the statutes are designed in. So we have our job pretty much taken care of. So I'm going to go through briefly and detail the 6 or 7 areas where the state has changed the regulations. And I'm starting, I don't want to miss anything. Let me see. Okay, so around section 7.10, any application to renew a permit shall be granted upon request of the permit holder unless the agency finds that there's been a violation or some circumstance that requires a new permit. So what it goes on to say is that because of some glitch in their regulations, no permit during the time period from July 1, 2006 to July of 2009 inclusive shall be valid for more than 11 years. Well, that time period has run out. So we're not really concerned with this language, but this is a change to the regulations that we have to incorporate. And then under, I think it's section 11, 1.6, any permit issued by the agency prior to July 1, 2006 or after July 1, 2009 for the development of land for which an approval is required under the general statutes, shall be valid for 5 years, provided the agency may establish a specific time period within which any regulated activity shall be conducted. Any permit issued by the agency prior to July of 2006 and July of 2009 for any other activity shall be valid for no less than 2 years and no more than 5. So what that's saying is that if you have an activity that runs aside a subdivision or zoning approval, it has to be for 5 years because zoning issues their permits for 5 years. Other than that, we could issue a permit for only 2 years. So that's what this particular section says. And once again, we've been doing this, so there was nothing, we didn't lose anything or miss anything. Then under section 711, for any permit application involving a property subject to a conservation restriction or a preservation restriction, the following shall apply for the purpose of this section. Conservation restriction means, and it goes on to determine the detail what that means, farming, et cetera, et cetera. Preservation restriction means a limitation whether or not stated in the form of a restriction, easement, or covenant, or condition in any deed, will, or other instrument executed by or on behalf of the owner of the land, including but not limited to the state of any political subdivision, et cetera, et cetera. Basically, what it's saying is that if there is a piece of property that's before us that a wetland application is being submitted, we have to, the applicant has to notify the person that holds the conservation restriction, either the state or a neighbor. So that wasn't in the regs 10 years ago. Now you have to notify the person holding or the person having that restriction or conservation easement on your property. So that's that. Okay, next. Okay. In section 4, which is uses as of right and uses as of right and non-regulated activities, your withdrawals of water for emergency purposes, the following operations and uses shall be permitted as non-regulated uses in wetlands and watercourses, provided they do not disturb the natural or indigenous character of the land. And that is now the fire department, which they used to come to us for a permit to put a standpipe in a pond. Now they no longer have to do that. So they finally incorporated into their regulations a non-regulated use, non-regulated activity, which is the installation for emergency purposes of water standpipes. And then in section 7, application requirements, the underlying language noted below is new and should be added to your regulations. The bracketed language noted below should be deleted from your regulations. Any application to renew a permit shall be granted upon request, et cetera, et cetera. And then it goes on to say that if there's a permit that did not expire prior to May 9 of 2011, this shall be valid for no more than 14 years. So whatever glitch was going on, and I don't know the reason for this, to be honest with you. I never inquired. I really didn't care. It was a general statute. We had to follow it. But people that have had a permit as of May 9th of 2011, their permits are good for 14 years. Typically, a permit is good for 10 years. It's 5 years, and then it's an automatic renewal for 5 years. So for this particular case here, if you got a permit before July of 2011 and it did not expire prior to May 9th of 2011, it's good for 14 years. Okay. Moving right along, 2 more. Notice to adjacent abutting owners shall be determined by the tax map or the grand list records only. So rather than going to the assessor's office and trying to determine who the property owner is or who the abutter is, now all we really have to do is go to the tax map, and that's it. So as far as getting a record, we don't have to trouble ourselves with researching. We just go to the tax map, and that's how you develop your list of abutters. And the last item here is the notice by the applicant to a water company of a regulated activity to take place by way of seeking a IWWC permit. So if there's if you're on a watershed, you have to notify the water company of your activity to get a wetlands permit. We don't have any public water supply watersheds, so we're good. That's it. So all of those items, those 6 items that I sort of stumbled through, they've all been incorporated into your regulations, which you have in front of you. So we can set up a public hearing for 65 days going forward. The requirement is that once we do a public hearing on regulations, we have to notify the state of Connecticut 35 days before the call of a hearing. So they've set that up that you can't call a public hearing for your next regularly scheduled meeting. So the earliest that we could call a hearing to adopt these regulations would be for October. So we can think about that.
Why don't
Sorry?
you set a date for that, John?
We could do that, or you can just take a deep breath and say, listen, let us look at these regs to see, if we have any questions. Or we could just go forward and set up a public hearing 65 days hence, and you guys have 65 days or 2 months to look at the regulations, ask questions, ask me a question, send me an email.
John?
Part of our regulations is yes?
Quick
Someone say
question. Is a public hearing, can a public hearing now have to be Zoom versus
Yeah,
a public hearing?
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Basically, we're conducting ourselves like every meeting is a public hearing, in a sense. The notifications and such. So it's a little stricter standard, but we're basically, other than the legal notice, we're doing that by way of the website. And so there's a little bit of latitude that the governor has given us in doing this. But yes, it would be a Zoom. So the last thing I have to go over, and I'll do it briefly, is the fee structure, which is section 19. And I think I did a pretty good job 25 years ago in setting up this fee structure. And it wasn't, basically, some of the fees were designed based on what we felt it would cost us to process the application. So, and taking in consideration that some of the fee structures were pretty much, they sort of ran out fairly quickly back in the early 2000s, because the price of things kept on escalating. Like the price of a public notice when I first started was like $25. Now that same public notice is $160, $200. So Mr. Shortoff's notice was around $200.
Right.
That's how expensive things have gotten. So we sort of designed our regulations to take that in consideration. We put the burden of paying for the public notice or the legal notice or the public hearing notice on the applicant. We put the burden of paying for an expert to review something that's before us on the applicant. The attorney's fees, if we need an attorney to review something on an application, the applicant pays for it. If we feel that we have a complex application, we can enforce additional fees based on the complexity of the application. So I think I stole this from somebody, obviously, because I'm not that bright that I would think of all of this, but I think we're in pretty good stead. But I have a few recommended changes. And I think the applicant is responsible for the cost of publishing a legal notice and a public hearing notice, that's standard, as well as any other legal notice determined appropriate by the commission. The commission can look for and request or require additional notices. So if you make that determination, there's nothing in our regs that would then require them to pay for that notice, since we only talk about a legal notice for a decision and the public hearing. So I wanted to include that.
Yeah.
And then the Schedule C, additional monitoring and inspection fees. We have the wetlands agent for $35 per inspection or per half hour. I think that's fair. I raised the engineering fees from $75 to $100 per inspection or per half hour. The same for the environmental consultant. And these fees, along with your approximate number and type of inspections, will be determined at the time of the filing of the application. So we modest the 25% increase to the fees for the engineer and or the environmental consultant. And I think that was it. So what I was trying to say earlier, which I said, is that I think we're in good stead. We have our commercial fee is $350. If somebody disturbs the wetlands, they pay $100 for each 1,000 square feet. They pay $1 for each linear foot of stream alteration. That means they put a culvert in underneath their driveway, and it's an intermittent water course. They have to pay for that per linear foot. It's $10 per linear foot, I think. And then the last thing, this is for your consideration. An applicant in the lake zone required to complete the nutrient allocation worksheet to comply with the zoning regulations reduces the nutrient loading by greater than 15% of the required reduction. So I think we should probably, if somebody is going to reduce the nutrient loading by greater than 10%, that is 15%, they shouldn't have to pay an application fee. We should reward them
Absolutely.
for that activity, meaning it's not like they're going and they're filling a wetlands. They're basically reducing the nutrient loading in the lake by 15% from their property. So I was just thinking that it'd be nice if we could reward people at the same time for something that they do on the lake. And it's modest.
Thank you, John. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I would encourage it. We get a reduction of 10% every time somebody puts in a patio or a shed or an addition or a modest addition, a deck or porch. They have to reduce the loading by 10%. And if they want to increase that to 15%, we can show some goodwill also.
Absolutely.
So that's it, guys. Okay.
Okay. Sounds good. John, you're right on the ball here.
No, not really.
You only took 15 minutes. You got another 5 minutes.
Don't say that.
Nice job. Okay. One question I have: if when a person starts walking in with the application or something, does he get those fees right at that time, or is there time to study them? Because with all these other things going on, it looks like it might take one meeting before we figure out what we're going to charge.
You know, unfortunately, the way the statutes are designed for the wetlands is that we have to get that fee up front. We have to tell them what we think it's going to cost the day that we receive that application. And the reason for that is over the years, I've had people withdraw their application because the fees were so high. Now, if you were to go down to Greenwich or go down to Westport, for this application that just came through us for Mr. Shortoff, that would probably cost around $3,500.
Wow.
Okay? I kid you not. Now, if you look at an application where they were filling a wetlands to put a driveway in and then this and that, I've gone through it years ago, 15, 20 years ago. The fee for a driveway crossing that's maybe 30 feet of wetlands by 25 feet would be over $8,000. So some people just, not that they would give up a lot, but they may decide not to go forward because the fees are so exorbitant. We're not like that. We're respectful of the individual. We know that it's mostly a homeowner who wants to do some modest improvement. 40% of all the lands in Columbia, at least, are wetlands. So it's hard to move. It's hard to spread your elbows and not hit something. So, so I have to come up with something the day that they submit their application and they're at the meeting. That's the day of the receipt of the application. The submittal is several days earlier. And I have to come up with what we think it's going to cost. And we have to be a little flexible because if we charge them a lot and we don't spend a lot, we have to give it all back to them. So I'm very liberal in what I think it's going to cost for us to review an application. Now, remembering in the last 12 years, we haven't had too many complex applications, right? We haven't seen those 15, 20 lot subdivisions. Mike DeLay, God rest his soul, has not been around for a long time. And we saw a lot of development, but we haven't seen it. So, we're getting rusty, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, okay, I'm done.
Okay, the only thing I was wondering about, John, is it seems like some of the things you were talking about are contingent upon us having a meeting at another time, not when a person just comes in to give their application.
I don't quite follow that, John. I'm sorry.
Well, I thought that some of the things you said that we'd have to decide upon would be made at the meeting following the person giving the application.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, I've been doing this long enough that I can sort of project and guesstimate on this and that. And like I
Okay.
said, if I overdo it, if I overstep my bounds or if I charge too much, that's only a check that, you know, it's going to go back to them if we don't spend it. You know, it's not like
Okay,
it's not like I'm overcharging them.
No.
I can't overcharge them.
as long as you're involved, I think that's a great idea, but if
Yeah,
somebody
yeah,
comes
well-
in and, you know, just leaves an application and the person at the desk doesn't know exactly what to charge, then
Oh,
it
yeah,
could be
yeah,
a
yeah,
problem.
right. I have to be involved, right. We had
Okay,
a
okay.
gravel operation before I left Andover. We had a gravel operation and basically I had to come up with a fee structure for that operation, which involved an environmentalist, it involved a lawyer, it involved an engineer, it involved my inspections, 40 some odd inspections, et cetera, et cetera. The application fee for the gravel operation was over $8,000. So,
Wow.
and I think, you know, I'm not there anymore, but I think we did pretty well. You know, we,
Yep.
we were able to pay for the, for all of those things and get good advice from experts and good advice from a town attorney. So, yeah, we'll manage.
As long as you're involved, John, I think it'll be an
Oh,
honor.
don't count on that much longer. Oh, yeah, you know, I'm always leaving.
Thank you,
But I
John.
think it's
Okay,
gonna be
that's great.
sooner than
Aren't
later
we
this
all?
time, guys.
I think you're
Yeah,
always,
well.
always very fair, John, so no problem. Okay, good. All right, next thing, I guess on the meeting, minutes here is the approval of the, minutes for February 3rd. Do we have a motion to approve those?
Make the motion.
Okay, second,
I'll second it.
all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Approved. Okay, good. Then the one on February 18th, 2020. Do I hear a motion to approve those?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
I can do it.
Okay, Tom, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And the last one here is July 15th, 2020.
Abstain. I should abstain since I wasn't there.
Oh, okay. The one, yeah, I wasn't there at July 15th either, so, all those, do we have a motion to approve this?
Yes, I'll move that. I was there.
Okay,
I'll second it. I was there.
we're good. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, very good.
Abstain.
Abstain, me too. Okay, next thing on the agenda is the audience of citizens, which we don't have anybody, I don't believe. I don't see any new faces there, so we're all set there. And how about any communications or correspondence? Oh, do we have anything? Or John, do you have anything?
No, I probably have, but I'm sorry, I was ill prepared for this meeting. This is sort of like out of I'm not in the office where I normally would just reach over and grab it and bring it upstairs.
Okay.
So some stuff may have fallen through the cracks here.
All right,
But
no problem.
sorry.
Okay, how about commission, open discussion, anything anybody wants to talk about?
We
Okay.
never set the 65-day on that John's ruling for the changes in the our regulations. You want to set that for the
Hearing for the regulations.
yeah.
Yeah, I think we ought to set a date for that and
Right,
make
right.
sure it gets done.
Right,
Flo's gonna have to keep track.
Right.
Okay, so let's just set the 65 days and that's it, right?
Well,
Right.
it has to be a minimum of 35 for notification to the state. That's not a problem. And then we would have to meet on October 5th. That's our regular meeting date.
Okay, so we'll use that for the public hearing or whatever.
Correct.
Sounds
So
good.
we'll
Yeah.
set the public hearing for October 5th. And if we have any questions or changes, I will send you the new text as it involves the fee structure. And then you could discuss it, and even at the public hearing, you may say, no, I don't think we should raise it that much, or we should look at this. We can change things at the public hearing.
Okay,
That's not a problem, okay?
Yep. very good. Okay,
May I have a naive rookie question?
sure. Of
Thank you.
course.
Relative to what we did tonight for the permit on Laurel with Kevin, I forget his last name.
Sure.
Yeah, one of the things he brought up, assuming that we all agree that this meets all the wetlands criteria, which I have not read or have in my head yet, was his safety and the safety of leaving his driveway. Is that an action that if something was a little off, that we would be able to work with him to ensure the safety of his or his family being able to leave their driveway in a way that they feel is safe because they see exceeding 25 miles an hour or whatever it was? I'm just, as a naive rookie, thinking, was that to me, in my estimation or thinking, was that should be a part of the criteria, that we're making this a safer environment for him.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so I'm kind of on the wavelength of what you would consider as the big picture criteria.
Yeah. You know, P&Z has a consideration for something like that.
Yeah.
DBA looks at a hardship, which
Yep.
that certainly would fall under. And we can't, and we as a wetlands commission, we look at preservation of wetlands, protection of wetlands. And if we
Correct.
have to allow a wetlands to be impacted, you know, if it was a safety issue, I think we would all feel more comfortable doing that than it would be for a development issue.
Right.
So
Or for
certainly,
a
yes.
aesthetic issue or whatever it
Yes,
was. Yeah.
exactly. You're right. Absolutely. And I've gone. The first time I went up his driveway, I had my big truck, and I said, "How the hell am I going to get out of here?" I could not turn around at the top. So he had and I was backing down the driveway. I could not turn around. So I
Wow.
understand. He could not that he couldn't develop a
Right.
turnaround up there, but it was a wet area. And it just didn't accomplish. You're absolutely right, Mayor. I feel this is actually a safety
Okay.
issue for him
Thank
and his
you.
family. Yeah.
Yeah, just trying to understand, why would we deviate from something, and a safety issue would be something that would be versus an aesthetic issue or whatever. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
John,
Yeah,
does
okay.
does he have an application before planning and zoning?
Zoning,
Okay,
all right. Zoning, and he also talked. You know, George Murphy's gone, guys,
Right, yeah.
and worse, Bud left also.
Bud Meyer?
Yeah.
There we go.
So we lost both George and Bud, the two of the most.
I did not know Bud left. Yikes.
Yeah, he just he just up and left. But I didn't think he was going to go home and eat crackers on the couch. But now he's the new fire marshal in the town of Coventry. He's the new assistant fire marshal.
Wow. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Thanks for the update.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Great. Okay, next item on our list here, you have any administrative reports, John, or you leave that?
Flo and I didn't put together our administrative approvals for the last 3 months, and we did. I issued probably 8 or 9.
Wow.
Administrative approvals.
Mhm.
I can only remember like 3 or 4. Maybe Flo can chime in, but I issued an administrative approval for Botticello on Edonia. I'm going in reverse order here. Where is it? Oh my gosh. Botticello or Donny Road, he put in a drainage swale and a berm above his beach area. There's been many problems that have occurred there over the last couple of years. He's tried to make some improvements, and we failed miserably after his first attempt. And finally, I think we got it. We just over-designed everything, but there was some sediment going from his beach into the lake. and he had to improve his existing stone swale and then divert any water that could possibly go down the sandy beach away into the lawn and wall. So I think we finally heard. I said goodbye to Dennis. Basically, I said, Dennis, I'm never going to see you again. Goodbye. So,
Good luck.
I'm serious. I'm serious, Mary.
Well, John, we'll find out with the tropical storm that's coming
No,
in
this-
tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, no, that's for sure.
They have a boat down it. Gates Mock Road, he has a farm there, a horse farm. I think one of his daughters runs it. He got a barn he put within 15 feet of the wetlands. I issued an administrative approval on that for a farm activity. Doubleday Road, we issued a permit to for a reissuance of a building permit on lot 00 Doubleday Road for Rick Massive. I issued a permit to Nathan Core, an administrative approval on a permit that the commission issued 14 years ago to Mr. Costanzo, who owns 15 acres of land. He had to cross a wetlands with his driveway to go back to the only spot on his property he could put a septic system in. And so that's a 1,000-foot driveway to get to an isolated little area where a septic system could be approved.
Well, that's good. So you and Matt just friends? Good friends?
What's going on?
Okay. East Con, Route 6, they did an addition. I've gone down and inspected it again. It was adjacent to a wetlands. It was a modest, an expansion of existing one of their bays, footing, no basement or anything. And finally, I inspected twice in the last week. I inspected the curtain drain, which went in below the stream that goes in between Mr. Lesage's property and Miss Sanford's property. Does anybody remember Hamilton, Sanford,
Yeah.
Lesage?
Yeah, the horse farm. Yeah,
Sound familiar?
the horse farm on Hennequin. Yeah.
Yes, Hennequin and Route 6 and 66. This has been going on for over 10 years. And finally, we stayed out of court, and finally, Dr. Hamilton agreed to pay for the curtain drain that went in above the Sanford house to keep water from going into her basement.
Wow.
So it's finally resolved after, I think, 3 zoning agents, and anyway, so that's what I remember.
Wow.
Not all of my activities, but those have been.
All right, that sounds very good. Thank you, John. I think that
Okay.
was good summary from what you can remember.
From what? Yes, which isn't much.
Right, oh, you did a good job there. Okay, so I guess that's it for the meeting tonight. Thank everybody for participating, and I think for the first time it went very well. So,
Thank you.
yeah. So do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Okay, second? Second? Thomas seconds it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
You too.
Thank you
Everybody,
so
good
much,
night.
John. Have a good week.
Good night, okay.
Nice to be a part of
No
this.
masks on. Nobody.
Nice to